Hello and welcome in to Addison to 35th podcast, your Chicago baseball authority. My name is Herb Lawrence. You can follow me on Twitter at Ecknerwall23. That is my last name, Lawrence, spelled backwards. ECNERWAL23 for Robin Ventura. Or if you want to try Blue Sky, go to herblawrence.bsky.social. The guy to my TV left, I guess that is Ryan Herrera. This is our probably third time that we've done a mutual show. We do this Addison the 35th podcast. If you're just first time listening or watching separately from each other, this is only our third time doing the show together. Ryan does the Cubs version. You can follow him at Ryan_A_Herrera on Twitter. And Ryan, you see that Max is going back to HBO Max? That's
Is
why
it?
I'll never. Yes, that's why I'll never call Twitter X. If I do, it's just a slip of the tongue. But because it's coming back, everybody who I know calls it Twitter, and if they do the X thing, it's like, oh, whatever it's called, X type of thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Twitter forever. There's probably people listening to this podcast today still call Wrigley Field Weekman Field or Weekman Park.
Ooh, maybe it's possible.
I used to shake a mighty finger at Tinker. He was a terrible manager.
The Sears Tower is always the Sears Tower, no matter what.
Always.
They call it whatever they want to.
That's never going to change.
I mean, hell, what is it? Rate Field now? It's still the Cell to me because that's what it was when I was a kid. But
it always will be to me, either Sox Park or Guaranteed Rate, or I can go with the generic made up name initially, but I can't keep on going with you down the Guaranteed Rate thing. So I'm just going to call it Sox Park. It's just so annoying. But that's not what you came here for. That's Ryan Herrera. You can follow him on Blue Sky at ryan-herrera.bsky.social. And thank you to the folks. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my Just Baseball hat. It's great. Go to the merch shop and get yourself one. The great folks over there, Aram, Peter, Jack, etc., who've put this show on for us and on their platforms and given us so much support. Ryan, like I said, covers the Cubs both on podcast form and also on the website of Just Baseball. So go there and check out Ryan's great work on Just Baseball for the Cubs. So we're going to talk about the Cubs and White Sox crosstown matchup they're having this weekend at Wrigley Field. Talk about the pitching probables for the weekend. And before that, we will single out one player that we believe is our quarter pole MVP for both of the teams that we do cover. But first, I watch very few Cubs games, mostly because I don't have a system that carries marquee. And so I don't get to check out Cubs games as much as I would want to, because I'm either checking out the White Sox or Padres. But that's why I want to ask you, Ryan Herrera, who covers the Cubs, watches them on a daily basis. What's going on 44 games into this 162-game season for the Chicago Cubs?
Well, the biggest thing is the Cubs are 25-19, and they're in first place in the NL Central. And I want to say they've had at least a share of first place since April 4th. So basically the whole season, right? Besides maybe 7 games or so. They're in the spot they need to be. They needed to be going into the season. I will give them credit because obviously that month of April was tough. The first March-April stretch was, you had 7 against the Dodgers, 7 against the Diamondbacks, 6 against the Padres. The Rangers were in there. The A's, who are surprisingly above 500 last I checked, were in that stretch too. The Phillies, they had a lot of tough opponents. I think maybe the Pirates at the end of the month were the only team that I can remember under 500 in that March-April stretch. Otherwise, it was a bunch of playoff contenders and some World Series contenders. And they sit here. We're in mid-May. It's May 15th today. They're 44 games in. They're 25-19, first place in the Central. A game up on the Cardinals, who just out of nowhere, they're 9-1 in their last 10. I think they're 11 of their last 12 or something like that. But got a little space. Four games back are the Brewers. 4.5 are the Reds. And then way down at 10 games back are the Pirates. So outside of the Cardinals, they've put a little bit of space in between them and most of the other division. But like I was kind of saying, this is where they needed to be. The tough stretch in March and April or not, they needed to be the team that when we go into the season saying this on paper, the best team in the National League Central, they need to be the team that's showing they are the best team in the National League Central. And again, credit to them for getting through that March, April stretch. I don't remember what the record was at the end of it. It was really good. And it's they dropped a couple series since then and whatnot, but like they still have a strong record, one of the top, I think, 8 records in Major League Baseball. And they got, started kind of with the Marlins here earlier this week. They got the White Sox coming up, like we talked about, like the Marlins in Miami next week. They got a softer part of their schedule coming up here for the rest of May. And so to be in the spot they're in with that coming up is huge when we're talking about this is a team that had playoff expectations all around going into the season. So again, they needed to be the team from the jump that was, okay, they're going to be good. They're going to be leading the Central. They're going to win the division. And that's what they've looked like so far. And so that's, again, credit to them for getting through that stretch and being where they are right now, 44 games in. Sox too. Where the Sox at right now. I've tried to pay attention to them, but it's not the easiest thing the last few years to pay attention to the Sox, right?
In more ways than one. Like the play has been not great, and then the switch to CHSN has not been great either for them. Right. And so I barely get a chance to watch them uninterrupted. If I do watch them, I'm kind of having it on the TV to see if they get a clear signal, because it's hit or miss for me. I live in uptown Chicago, so I know other people have better antennas or live in places that it gets better reception, but not here in uptown. So I would turn the volume down and then put on Lynn and DJ on the radio to catch the game and get the full, spread of both audio and visual. But I think that the White Sox have the same exact record. I actually don't think I know exact record as they had last year, 14-30 at 44 games in. They're 28th in team F4. The only team, the worst team in baseball, luckily for the White Sox, is the Colorado Rockies. And they've already fired their manager, longtime manager, Bud Black. The team that's above them or below the White Sox in 29th of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who fired their manager. So Will Venable's not going to get fired this year.
Yeah.
Because there's multiple layers there. Will Venable, I think, has done yeoman's work, because this team, while they have the same record and a higher F4 than what they had last year, they're better. I feel better watching the games. They play better. While they're 28th in most offensive categories, I just feel like, especially since they brought the youngsters up, Mydroth, Caro, and now Tim Elko's got his call up this past weekend, I feel like they're on a direction that most fans would want them to start playing the youngsters. These are all rookies, all deserve to break camp with the team at when spring training hit. But, sometimes you got to do the manipulation of service time. So that's what the White Sox did. And Tim Elko has been held down in the minors for way too long this year. And so I thought that him coming up was finally validation that, hey, this program is starting to work out, and it's better to watch these games with those three in the lineup. Miguel Vargas, who's still kind of young, is doing some good work with the bat, and others who are not that long in the tooth, like Shane Smith, that have done and exceeded expectations so far. The record might not be great, and I said at the beginning of the year, the record will probably be irrelevant, and it might even be worse than last year. They still have that going for them. They still are on the same pace as they were last year. But I feel better. They've won 4 series this year, which I think they won all of last year. So they're ahead of the game, even though the record doesn't say that they're better than what they were last year. So I feel kind of good about where the White Sox are heading into this Crosstown Classic. What I want to ask you next, though, Ryan, is we see the Cubs doing a lot of great things with their teams. I see the highlights. I see the walk-off, the excitement. I live a mile down from Wrigley Field. I hear the excitement over here. The city's abuzz with Cub love because they're playing so well. I know it's not a single player's responsibility or a single player's full value that the Cubs are playing this well and they're looking this well. But if you had to have a quarter pole MVP, for a lack of a better term, who would that be on the Cubs?
There are a bunch of players stepping up, and I'm just going to throw out a bunch of names here just to kind of highlight what, Kyle Tucker, 1.8 F4, it's 15th in baseball. He's he's had, I think, the last couple of weeks a bit of a slump relative to Kyle Tucker, right? I think he's still like almost at a 900 OPS, which shows you how good he was before the last couple of weeks. But even the last couple of weeks, it's like a 653 OPS or something like that in his last like 18 games. Like, it's not horrible, right? But relative to Kyle Tucker, it's a slump, right? But he's been the star for the most part the Cubs thought they were getting when they acquired him. I mean, Carson Kelly has 1.3 F4. It was a lot higher earlier, even a couple weeks ago. It's down to 42nd in baseball now. But with him and Miguel Amaya, the way they're both hit, I mean, Carson Kelly was at like unsustainable levels, but it was excellent to see. And then pairing that with Miguel Amaya, who's quietly had a good offensive season of himself, like that catching. I want to say last year, F4 wise, like wins above replacement, the Cubs catching group was like second to last, only ahead of the White Sox. Maybe I want to say that that's true. They are way between those two guys, way above that right now, and so those two guys could have an argument as a group, and even just Carson Kelly himself as like very, very valuable to what the Cubs have done in the first 44 games. I mean, Dansby Swanson's turned it up the last couple of weeks. He got moved down in the order, and then all of a sudden something clicked, and he's been hitting really well the last couple of weeks since they were in Pittsburgh, I think. And then rotation-wise, like Matthew Boyd has been an excellent addition to like not just the numbers that he's putting up, but he's faced like I did it after he faced the Mets this weekend. I looked at it and I don't remember all the teams off the top of my head, but everyone except for I think the Pirates was a playoff team at that. Like if the season had ended on Sunday, like I think every team he faced was a playoff team, and he's done really well. Colin Ray stepped in when Justin Steele went down, and he's done really well in the rotation. So there are a lot of guys who have proven themselves to be pretty valuable for this team and what they want to do. The one guy I haven't obviously mentioned who is my quarter pole MVP is Pete Armstrong. He's entering today, so entering Thursday, 2.5 F4, which was fifth among position players in baseball. And I mean, he's played every game. I want to say, I believe he's played every single game. He plays a premium defensive position in center field and has elite, like at the top of the league, elite numbers defensively, defensive runs saved, outs above average, all that kind of stuff. He's an excellent base runner. He's got the speed. He's got the instincts. He steals a lot of bags, first to third, all that kind of stuff. But after a couple weeks of a season where he wasn't really hitting at all, he had an insane extended hot stretch for like 3 weeks or so. And he's cooled off a little bit more recently. But what he's done in the first 44 games of the season again, with the bat, in the field, on the bases. I mean, I wouldn't say he's young. He's not a veteran. I wouldn't say he's like a locker room leader yet, but he has those kind of qualities too. Like guys gravitate towards him because of the energy he shows. He is, when you're talking about blossoming stars, he's that. I don't know that I'd say he's a star yet, just because it's still so early on in his major league career. But he is blossoming basically seemingly every game. He's blossoming into a star, the star the Cubs hoped he could be when they traded for him 4 years ago, when they gave up Javi Baez. And I think Trevor Williams is also a part of that trade. And so he's becoming a star seemingly more and more of a star seemingly every game. And the numbers back it up that he's been, if you're looking at just WAR, he's been the most valuable Cub in the first 44 games. And I don't think anyone would argue against it, just with everything he's done to get this team into the business, help get this team into the position that they're in right now. Yeah, he's my quarter pole MVP. He's had a great first quarter of the season.
Yeah, I think I jinxed that, if there is such of a thing. I wrote a tweet out after I saw that he rejected, Pete Armstrong rejected or couldn't come to terms with the Cubs on a long-term deal, reportedly a $75 million extension for Pete Armstrong. And I was like, yeah, hey man, I believe in betting on yourself, because you are your own best advocate. If you feel like that is short of your money and you want to get up to where Corbin Carroll is, hey buddy, Brian just said he's up there with Corbin Carroll as far as F4. He's one of the best players in baseball currently. And what I tweeted out is, hey, bet on yourself, brother. But I wouldn't I wouldn't sneeze at $75 million for a light hitting outfielder. Ever since that tweet, that man has hit everything hard. Actually, just really damn hard. Every time I watch him, a ball is traveling outside of the ballpark for some reason, or he's making some insane catch, or he's diving at a ball that's 5 feet past him. He is so annoying not root for, but I am sure that Cub fans love to root for him because he's exciting. He looks electric out there.
Yeah, no, he's I mean, you talk about the just unexpected power. Like he's a fast twitch kind of player. He's athletic. Like I think he had sneaky power to begin with, but he hit 11 home runs in the first 43 games. Like that's more than he had all of last season. That's that. I don't know how sustainable that is, right? I don't know if he's going to hit 40 plus home runs in a major league season, but like the fact that he's already at 11 and we're just over a quarter of the way through the season, like you're talking about a guy who plays, again, elite defense in center field, has elite base running skills. I don't think he doesn't have the best average or the best on base percentage. He doesn't walk a lot, but if he's giving you a lot of slug the way he has been, I mean, you're living with that, right? So yeah, I mean, again, he's my quarter pole MVP. I think the national consciousness, people know who Pete Crow Armstrong is. I would say a lot of baseball fans know who Pete Crow Armstrong is, and that is like one of the big signs of if you're becoming a star in this game. And I mean, I don't think he's there yet, but he seems on his way. He seems on his way to being a star in this game. And you mentioned the Cubs and the contract stuff, and from what I understand, it was just kind of preliminary checking in. Like it wasn't like they were at the negotiating table or anything like that. And Pete has basically said, like, I would love to be a Cub for a long time, right? But regardless of a contract extension today or not, like the Cubs have him under control for like another 4 seasons, I want to say, after this, maybe 5, whatever that is. So there's no rush for really either side to get a contract done, and the Cubs might just have that star on their hand, the new era of Cubs star on their hands right now in Pete Armstrong. How about you? I mean, I would say for the Sox side, freely admitting that I have not paid close enough attention to the White Sox. I mean, the rotation has seemed like it's been the strength of the team, if you can call anything on that team a strength. Like it seems like it's been the rotation. I mean, I would assume I'll let you say who your quarter pole MVP is, but I would assume it's got to be someone in that rotation.
You would be correct because as I do like the youngsters, Chase Mydroth, Edgar Carroll, and Tim Elko, they don't have enough at bats to qualify for my quarter pole. They haven't played enough. Mydroth came up after 10 games played here in the majors, and then he got hurt almost immediately with a thumb injury, which he's kind of still dealing with right now. But if he did qualify for major league on base percentage, he would be in the top 50 of the guys at a 350 on base percentage because he already has 11 walks in the 21 games he's played, and he scored a bunch of runs. I think he scored 11 runs so far in the few and far between opportunities that he's had in the major leagues. I just love how he plays despite getting hit in the head trying to field a pop fly at second base. Things happen. He's a White Sox, so of course embarrassing things are going to happen to you as a White Sox. Not him, because he hasn't played enough. Neither Edgar Carroll, who is my favorite player on the team, because he's a baseball savant. He understands the game at a level as far as intelligence that is way beyond just 22 years that he's lived already. The other day, he had a great at-bat where he took a pitch that was needed. Like it was an inside pitch to him, high and inside. So he took it to right field, grounded to where the second baseman would usually play. And the guy from second comes in to score. Like either way you do it, he's going to get either a productive out right to the second baseman or like he did, he got a RBI single there. Like he understands how to hit, what the counts are, what the situation of the game is early in his career. And that's very, very encouraging to see as a person that has seen a lot of low IQ baseball in the last couple of years from these Chicago White Sox. And it's not Elko because he hasn't played enough games, but
he did a home run over the weekend, right?
He did. He hit on Mother's Day. His first hit
There you
was
go.
a home run, and so it was great. But it would be starting rotation, as you said, all strong. But the guy that Chris Getz and his coaching staff picked number one overall in the Rule 5 draft this past offseason, Shane Smith from the Milwaukee
Yeah.
Brewers, has been absolutely one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. I know that you're over there shaking your head, not you, Ryan the Royal, you who are listening and watching this. Yes, one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Just to give you a couple categories. If you want to go old school, he's got an ERA that's 208, one of the best in the league. If you want to go with analytics, he has a 1.2 F4, which is tied for 18th around people like Chris Sale, Kodai Sengai, Freddie Peralta, a guy named Dylan Cease, and maybe you've heard of Nick Martinez if you watch today's game. Like, he's just as good as those pitchers this year, and he's only a rookie. His xERA, 3.34, which is tied for 22nd. It's better than Garrett Crochet's this year. Like, he is pitching at a level that is high than anybody would have ever expected. And so I am just so appreciative of Chris Getz and his staff and what they've done as far as getting him and putting some of these rookies on the field. I need more of that energy. And when I say this, I know it's going to sound mean. I don't need the Nick Matons of the world on the White Sox. He's in AAA now, but I know he'll be back here. Those guys probably great people as your family member or a friend. I'm not coming after him personally. I'm just
Yeah, it's
saying.
no disrespect.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for this team, we need those young players. I think, you need an OG, maybe two OGs in the clubhouse to tell the players how to do things, aka what Justin Turner's value is for the Cubs. He's not really doing a lot for them on the bat, except for the other day he got an RBI, game-winning RBI. But his OG-ness, his looseness, this is how you play Major League Baseball. Those gems need to be passed down. You don't need 5 or 6 of those dudes, and the White Sox got that. So I want them to move forward with younger players. And if Kyle Teal's showing you a hint of he can play, bring him up. Colson Montgomery, if he's showing you a hint that he can play, bring him up. And so that's where I'm at with the White Sox. And Shane Smith would be our quarter pole MVP and probably our only member of the All-Star game that's going to happen this July in Atlanta, because there's no one else really that's pitching and or hitting at a top level for either the pitching or the hitting of the Chicago White Sox. Now let's go to Friday afternoon as the Chicago White Sox come off a road trip where they took 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds, 1-3 in a row before they lost on Thursday, playing a little bit better. And the guy I just mentioned, as far as my MVP, Shane Smith, will toe the rubber. His record is 1-2 with a 2.08 ERA, and it's Cade Horton with a 1-0 and a 6.75 ERA. This is going to be his second start ever. Ryan, tell the folks about, or the second game ever. Tell the folks about Cade Horton. And he's a highly touted prospect, as I know, but tell him what happened in his first appearance as a major league pitcher over the weekend.
Well, first, I wanted to say, so Shane Smith was a Rule 5 pick, you said?
Mm-hmm.
The Rule 5 draft is it's always a crapshoot, right? And it's not always, but like the success stories from the Rule 5 draft are more rarer than not. Like, even this year, like the Cubs Rule 5 draft pick also already played for the White. Like, he's been DFA'd. He got DFA'd by the Sox, right? Recently, Gage Workman, like, he's been DFA'd by teams on both sides of town. So the fact that Shane Smith is doing that as a Rule 5 pick, like, I think you wonder what the Sox saw that the Brewers didn't, because the Brewers are generally one of the better. It seems like one of the better organizations at, getting pitchers through the farm system, unlocking things from them, and just throwing them in the big leagues, and all of a sudden they have success. Like, I feel like they've done that every year for the last 6 or 7 years.
The Cubs got one. Colin Ray, former Brewer.
There you go. Yeah, from Milwaukee. Yeah, so maybe Milwaukee's taking a step back in that area. So, but yeah, no, props to Shane Smith, because that was a name that I had in my head. As far as, I feel like every time I see him, it may not be super dominating stuff out there, but 6 innings, 2 runs, right? 7 innings, 3, like whatever that is, like quality start after quality start. And for a guy, Rule 5 draft pick, that's huge for for the White Sox.
Yeah, his pitching run value is in the 96th percentile in the league. He has a 6-run value on his four-seam fastball. He is chucking that thing. Doesn't get a lot of
Yeah.
chase, but he gets a lot of whiffs on those pitches. He's got 3+ pitches, throws 6, but he's been a thing. So,
That's
oh
good.
yeah, back to Cade Horton.
Cade Horton.
What did he do at his debut versus the Met?
So it was he came in the second inning, so it wasn't a start, but they had was it Brad Keller? I think Brad Keller opened that game, first inning, and I mean, you got to avoid like Lindor and Juan Soto, and it might have been Pete Alonso batting third. I don't remember for sure, but got to avoid the top of the order to start off his major league career. I think it was 4 innings, 3 runs. Like all the runs came on it was a Brett Beatty lefty 3-run home run. It was just on a sweeper that it ended up low and inside, but I think the idea was it was just a little too flat, hung over the heart of the plate a little too long, and you're going to be hard pressed to get away with that in the minor leagues, let alone the big leagues, right? So that was obviously a kind of a learning experience for him, but he looked sharp. I want to say he struck out 5 guys, didn't walk any, and then was it? I don't remember if it was the last out of his night or not, but facing Juan Soto in a 1-run game, Juan Soto. I looked at the numbers. I feel like when I see people talking about him on Twitter, he's having this like super disappointing season. Yeah. I mean, at the time, it was still like a 150 WRC plus. Like he was still having a really good year. So whatever. But I mean, when and in general, one of the best hitters on the planet, and Cade Horton hadn't thrown a changeup that entire night, which is one of his, he's basically fastball slider or fastball sweeper, whatever you want to call it. So hadn't thrown a changeup all night. Actually shook off Miguel Amaya. I think he might have called another fastball or something, and just felt like he felt convicted and like this is the moment to break it out. No one's seen it yet on the Mets tonight. Like let's break this out. Goes and gets Juan Soto to swing through a changeup. Like that itself is like kind of shows his moxie and his conviction on the mound in his major league debut. All his family and friends in the stands. He's in New York. It's a Fox Saturday night national broadcast, and he goes out and does that. And he got the win, right? And so, this is going to be his first start on Friday in front of Wrigley Field, or in front of the Wrigley Field crowd. Like I talked to him the other day at Wrigley, and kind of was just like, whether it's starting or whatever, like I'm just excited to get on the mound at Wrigley. I think the way things lined up, it was pretty much until the Cubs hadn't said it until Wednesday night, but like Cade Horton was going to get that Friday start. But I think there was the talk of like, maybe don't bring him up for the Mets series, have him start against the Marlins or the White Sox or whoever it was. Again, I mentioned the softer part of the schedule, and this is it. But I was like, you know what? Let him go against the Mets. If he's gonna be this big time pitcher for you, he's gonna have to face these guys eventually. They gave him a little bit of a softer landing by having the opener, and that turned out to work out well for him. But now you're getting into that part where like he's got probably the first game jitters out of the way, the first game nerves. He knows his stuff plays at the big league level against really good big league hitters, and now he goes up against the White Sox, who just, at least on paper, and I think we can all agree that they're a softer matchup for him than the Mets were. And I mean, Cade Horton I think the Cubs number 2. He is the Cubs number 2 prospect. He's a top 50 prospect in baseball, one of the better pitching prospects in baseball. Like, this has been highly anticipated, a little bit rushed maybe because of the injuries in the rotation with Shota Imanaga and Javier Assad and Justin Steele. But nonetheless, he's up. He did well in his first outing against the Mets, and now he's going to get that first start. And so, personally, like I'm looking forward to seeing what he does his first time starting a big league game against the White Sox. No matter what, it always, even last year, right? The last couple of years, we can say these matchups always feel big, and whether the Cubs are really good and the Sox are bad, or vice versa. Like, both teams get up to play this series. It's going to be a hot crowd on both sides. And so I'm excited to see what he goes out and does in his first start against the White Sox. I think that's going to be it seems like that's going to be a pretty fun pitching matchup to start off the series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If the White Sox have a chance to get any games, they need Shane Smith to be Shane Smith and the White Sox bats to come alive or to just sit on their shoulders versus Cade Horton because the stuff looks filthy. I don't know if they can hit it if they tried to. So maybe some walk offense would be in their best interest. But on Saturday, we have the opening day starter for the Chicago White Sox, Sean Burke, 2-4 with a 4.15 ERA versus a guy that I doubted that could pitch 100+ innings because he hasn't done it in years. It is Matthew Boyd, who has gone out and chucked this year, 3-2 with a 2.78 ERA. I've been very wrong on this guy. I know he hasn't crossed the threshold of 100 innings as yet, but he looks really solid. He looks like a pitcher that should get $14 million a year. He looks really nice, and I have to apologize. That's a mea culpa. Matthew Boyd is shoving it out there at Wrigley.
Yeah, no, you go back to, honestly, you go back to when we were both still with CHGO and the Cubs signed Matthew Boyd. And like, I thought it was a nice signing. Like, he had a good end of the season with Cleveland last year. And that was after, was it Tommy John surgery, if I'm not mistaken? Like, lengthy time off, and came back and had a good run with them, pitched some playoff games. The Cubs go out and get him. And I think once the whole offseason played out, it was kind of like, that's their big off-season rotation addition, right? Like, it felt like they could have taken a bigger swing as far as the rotation goes, and they didn't. But Matthew Boyd, as I mentioned earlier, has been he has an argument to say he's been the Cubs' best pitcher so far this year. You mentioned the ERA, that's 20th among qualified starters or qualified pitchers in baseball. It's 20th. I mentioned some of the teams he's faced, right? The Padres, the Dodgers, the Mets. Like, he's gone out and just seemingly every time is finding success. And so when you're talking about a guy who just didn't pitch a lot the last couple of years because of major injuries, like, you didn't really know what you were going to get with Matthew Boyd. And then you see the matchups that he has as far as the opposing lineups and stuff. And to be where he's at right now is better than the Cubs could have possibly asked or hoped for out of him when they signed him. And right now it's looking like a pretty big bargain of a deal, considering how well he's pitching.
Yeah, and the starter for the White Sox on Saturday, Sean Burke, didn't have his best start, his last one, where he only went four innings, 4 hits, gave up only 1 earned run, but only lasted 4 innings. That was a bad start. Most of his starts this year have been subpar, but the 2 starts before that, where he faced the Kansas City Royals and the Milwaukee Brewers, he went out and gave them 6 innings of 1-hit baseball. 6 innings of 2-hit baseball, no runs versus the Royals, and then 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run versus the Milwaukee Brewers. So it seems like he was turning a corner, and then he faced the Marlins at home a couple days ago and ran out of gas. He was just using way too many pitches to get these guys out, and you saw that Marlins squad. That's nothing. That offense is really nothing except for the greatest hitter of all time, Kyle Stowers. He is ruining Chicago on both sides of the town, but he was just nibbling everywhere. Didn't have his command or control of the pitches that he wanted to throw. But the 2 starts before that, he looked really solid. A guy that has started as the opening day starter this year for the White Sox has looked anything but that since he has done that. But those 2 starts before this one were promising. And on Sunday, we have Jonathan Cannon with a 2-4 record, 3.60 ERA versus Colin Ray, 3-0 with a 2.48 record. Another guy where veteran, didn't know if you're going to have to depend on him being your starter. And the White Sox and the Cubs have had multiple injuries to top of the rotation arms, and Colin Ray has come on and done the job.
Yeah, no, he's I think it was 1 year, $5 million. Like, it was a nice depth option for the rotation. Like, he started the year in the bullpen and then moved in pretty early when Justin Steele went down. But he's a guy that just continues to go out there and do well for them and give them starts that they need. 6 innings. I think was it Tuesday? It was like 7 1/3, 2 runs or something like that. Like, I think I don't remember the exact stat line, but it was like, I think he keeps kind of going out and surprising people with how well he can do, regardless of the lineup he's facing. Similar to I don't remember, it was a Shane Smith I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, it's not overpowering stuff, dominant starts, like 7 innings shutout, 12 Ks or anything like that. But he's going out and getting the job done. And when you're like, he's had this success in the past. He's never been like an all-star level pitcher, but like he's gone out, and you mentioned with the Brewers, like the Brewers were a team he had success with on either side of the rotation or bullpen. And so when the Cubs, I mean, I think the Cubs in the best scenario would never have had to use Colin Ray as a starter, right? They could have kept him in the bullpen, long man, doing all that kind of stuff because they had good health and the rotation was doing well. That's not how baseball works. The nature of the season is guys get hurt and other guys have to step up. And Colin Ray's been a guy that Justin Steele, their best pitcher, the guy a couple years ago finished 5th in Cy Young. I guess Steele and Imanaga both have the argument to be the Cubs' best pitcher, but one of their top of the rotation guys goes down. He's out for the season. You need someone to step up. And Colin Ray's done that for the Cubs and done it to a really good level. It's a level that I didn't see coming. I don't know how many people saw it coming. Maybe only Craig Counsell and Colin Ray themselves saw it coming. But the Cubs have needed someone to step up with the rotation injuries. And Colin Ray's been that for him. And so, whether it's the Sox or whoever, like he's facing the Sox on Sunday, but he's on a nice run of going out and giving them 5 innings, 1 run, quality start, like whatever it is, doing enough to give the team a chance to win. And when you're talking about a guy who was like the 6th option, 7th option as far as bullpen or rotation depth goes, like you need that. You need a guy to be able to move in there and do that, and that's what he's done.
The starter on Sunday for the White Sox, and I say starter, kind of because he is, most of the games that he has pitched this year, he has started. But the 2 games that he had an opener for, he has actually dominated. The game versus Oakland on April 26th, where he went 7 2/3 after coming in after the first inning, 7 2/3, gave up 6 hits, only 3 earned runs. A dominant performance he had out there in Oakland. Who you've seen those games out in Oakland. Kind of a bandbox. The Cubs bludgeon those A's out there, or not Oakland, Sacramento. Golly, I keep on messing that up. Those games out in Sacramento are really tough to, gauge, especially when the Cubs are hitting home runs out there like it's nothing. A's are doing the same. And so when he went out there and shut them down for the most part, it was very encouraging. And then this last start he just had versus Cincinnati Reds with Brandon Eisert being the opener, you get into the second inning, and then Jonathan Cannon takes over, goes 6 innings, gives up 4 hits, no earned runs. And like the guy just goes out there and does the job. I think he struck out 6 guys that game. And so you might get an opener on Sunday where you're just going to get the first 3 batters and possibly more than likely a lefty because of the Cubs lineup construction at the top of the order. So you'll get a lefty to start on Sunday, and then Jonathan Cannon relieving that guy in the second inning. So I just want to warn you, Cub fans, that might be the plan, but the White Sox have only done that twice this year with Jonathan Cannon and his starts, but I think it's working out pretty well for the White Sox as so far. Ryan, got any predictions for this weekend? The Cubs and Sox play 6 games this year. About time. Last year they played only 4, and it was annoying.
The last 2 years, 2 or 3 years have been only 4 games.
It's so terrible. This is how it should be. I would love it expanded. I would love the Cubs and Sox to be in the same division, but that's another show. 3 games in Wrigley Field with that pitching matchup I just put out there. What's the Cubs record out of this 3-game set with the White Sox?
This is what I said earlier. Like, no matter, like, you kind of throw out the records when these 2 teams play each other. I mean, I think the Cubs, they might have swept the Sox last year, but there were definitely a game or 2 where it was close. And then even in 2023, like Christopher Morel's walk-off 3-run home run was the difference. I think the Cubs would have they might have dropped that series at Wrigley if they didn't come back right there. Like, so
White Sox would have retained the Cup. Yeah.
So like you kind of throw out the records with these 2 teams when they meet, but I gotta be like, a series win is like has to happen, but I'm honestly expecting a sweep. Like I think the pitchers, at least with Colin Ray and Matthew Boyd, like the Cubs have 2 guys that they've been able to rely on a lot this year going. Friday's Cade Horton. You don't exactly know what's going to happen with a guy making his first start, only a second outing in the major leagues. But he is facing the White Sox lineup, who I think, you said like you felt better about this team and that lineup so far this year than last year. But like I would say like I predict that the Cubs sweep the three-game series at Wrigley this weekend. And I got to point out that what is it? The Sox in the overall like historic seasons or historic regular season series are 74 and 72. So the Sox are up 2 games. I think the Cubs come out of this series at Wrigley this weekend, now leading the head-to-head all-time record with the White Sox. So that's my prediction. But again, like nothing will surprise me in a Crosstown Classic anymore.
Yeah, I'm going for 1 win for the White Sox. I think Shane Smith will battle and do his thing on Friday. But the difference will be after Shane Smith pulled in the 5th or 6th inning, the White Sox will be getting some runs off of Cade Horton. Not because they're hitting him hard. I think that they will be patient enough, and that atmosphere is going to rattle a young kid. It's electric. It's like no other atmosphere that anybody's ever been in because, yeah, Cub fans and Sox fans might play it off like this doesn't matter, but it matters. If you're in the ballpark, you feel it.
It matters.
You know your friends are going to be pissed at you who are Cub fans or Sox fans. Like, it's really like, yeah, the White Sox are down, as you say. Throw the records out. The White Sox are really down. But last year they gave the Cubs most things they can handle. And I think, yeah, the White Sox are only going to win 1 game in the series because I think they're just a bad team. And that's not an indictment on the players. It's an indictment on the organization. But also, I think the Cubs are a really damn good team. Like, not just pitching, not just hitting. They are a complete team that you could see playing in that deep into October.
Yeah, and their offense, I was looking at the numbers before we hopped on. Like they're top 5 in basically everything in the majors.
Yeah.
You want like home runs, stolen bases, weighted on base average, WRC plus, isolated power. Like they're OPS, right? Like they're top 5 team in basically every major offensive category. Like the ones you go on Fangraphs and you see on the dashboard, right? Like that's when we're talking about what's gotten the Cubs to where they are. I think some of the rotation guys have stepped up. The bullpen's been hit or miss. And I think there was a point where guys were starting to figure things out like role wise, and they've had a couple blow ups since. So the bullpen is still a work in progress. I mentioned some of the rotation guys have stepped up, but it's been the offense leading the way for basically the whole season. They're not averaging 6 runs per game anymore, but there was a long stretch where they were averaging 6 runs per game, which is if you're putting up 6 runs in a game, you should win that game more often than not, right? So like that the offense has been the driver of this team to get to where they are right now. And so I mean I don't know what the wind's going to look like this weekend, but it's going to be with some warmer weather, especially tomorrow. I think it's going to be in the 80s and sunny. So it's going to be warmer weather. Like the Cubs bats have already been alive for most of the season. It seems like it might be a good weekend for some more run scoring from them, and they do have a really high powered offense.
Yeah, that's a thing. Not rooting for the Cubs to win this weekend, but I am also rooting for them when they do not play the White Sox because they play an exciting brand of baseball. And hopefully, for the Cubs and the Cub fans' sake, they find a way to re-sign Kyle Tucker because I think it's causation and correlation that the Cubs are actually hitting much better than they did last year. And having a stalwart like Kyle Tucker and they're a professional like Kyle Tucker and they're showing you the way can only help to rub off on the rest of the players out there because you see a new Dansby Swanson out there. That man found his bat. That man has been hitting the ball real hard. And you've already talked about Pete Crow Armstrong, Michael Bush from time to time. You get that catcher duo, Carson Kelly. I mean, it's just Miguel Amaya. It's just endless. You have so many options. And I will be rooting for the Cubs every day, except for the 6 days that they do play the White Sox and or Padres. That is Ryan Herrera. Follow him on the Twitter sphere at Ryan_A_Herrera or Ryan-Herrera.bsky.social on Blue Sky. My name is Herb Lawrence. You can follow me on Twitter, Ecknerwall23 or herblawrence.bluesky.bsky.social on Blue Sky. So for Ryan, my name is Herb. thank you for joining us on this episode of Addison the 35th. We should have another episode on Sunday into Monday where we recap this whole Chicago White Sox, Chicago Cubs series, where the Chicago Cubs try to sweep the White Sox, and if the White Sox win 2 out of 3, oh my God, you're not going to hear the end of it. So we'll see it on Sunday and or Monday. Thank you for joining us today.